My brother bullied me relentlessly growing up, and my parents always took his side. He's now disabled, and they expect me to quit my job to become his full-time caregiver. Now they are threatening to disinherit me if I refuse. Before we got to the story, I plan to give away 100 USD to whoever has the best opinion regarding this matter. So stay tuned, and I'll announce the winner in the few next videos. You only have to post your opinion on the comment below and consider to like and subscribe so that you'll not miss the announcement and many other future giveaway. Thanks, and back to the story. When we were kids, my older brother Jack was the golden child. From the day he was born, he could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. They showered him with praise and affection while I was constantly criticized and overlooked. It was as if Jack could walk on water while I was left to drown. He excelled in sports, got good grades, and was popular among his peers. I, on the other hand, was more introverted and academically inclined. This difference in our personalities seemed to set the stage for what became a childhood of torment for me. Jack bullied me relentlessly. He would destroy my things, mock me in front of my friends, and even physically hurt me on occasion. I remember one particularly painful incident when he ripped apart a drawing I had spent hours working on for an art competition. I ran to my parents in tears, hoping they would comfort me and reprimand Jack. Instead, they dismissed it as sibling rivalry and told me to stop being so sensitive. This pattern repeated itself countless times throughout our childhood. Whenever I tried to stand up for myself or tell my parents, they would brush it off and take his side. Felt trapped and helpless, constantly living in the shadow of my brother's cruelty and my parents' favoritism. It took a toll on my self-esteem, and I struggled with anxiety and depression. The day I moved out for college was one of the happiest days of my life. I thought I had finally escaped my toxic family dynamics and could start fresh. I worked hard to build a successful career and a life of my own. I found a job I loved, made wonderful friends, and even started dating someone special. For the first time, I felt like I was in control of my own destiny. However, a year ago, everything changed. Jack was in a terrible accident that left him paralyzed from the waist down. The news was shocking. Despite our rocky past, I felt a deep sense of sympathy for him. I reached out to my parents to offer my condolences and see how I could help. They were distraught and overwhelmed, having become his primary caregivers overnight. I tried to support them emotionally and financially from a distance, but I made it clear that I could not uproot my life completely. Initially, my parents seemed to understand. They thanked me for my help and assured me that they would manage. But as time went on, their requests for assistance became more frequent and demanding. They would call me at all hours, asking for advice, financial help, and even small tasks that could easily be handled by local services. I complied as much as I could, feeling a mix of guilt and obligation. However, it soon became apparent that my efforts were never enough. A few months ago, my parents approached me with a proposition that took me completely off guard. They expected me to quit my job and move back home to become Jack's full-time caregiver. They argued that it was my duty as a family member and that they were too old and tired to continue caring for him themselves. I was stunned. I tried to explain that my job is important to me, and I have my own life and responsibilities. I reminded them of the long history of abuse and neglect I suffered at Jack's hand. I also pointed out that there are professional caregivers who are better equipped to handle his needs. But they dismissed my concerns, saying family comes first and that it was time for me to step up. Pressure from my parents intensified. They would call me daily, sometimes multiple times a day, pleading and guilt-tripping me. They brought up our family history, twisting it to make it seem like I was the ungrateful one for refusing to help. They even contacted my partner, hoping to persuade him to convince me. It was a nightmare. I started losing sleep, my work performance suffered, and my relationship began to strain under the weight of their demands. I continued to refuse, standing my ground and trying to set boundaries. That's when they dropped the bombshell. They threatened to disinherit me completely. They claimed I was abandoning my family in their time of need, and that if I didn't comply, I would be cut out of their will. The irony was not lost on me. They were using the same tactics they had employed throughout my childhood. manipulating me with guilt and fear. My parents' threat to disinherit me felt like the ultimate betrayal. Despite everything, I had always held out hope that they would eventually see me for who I truly am and acknowledge the pain they had caused. Instead, they were now using their financial leverage to try and control me once again. It was a stark reminder of how little they valued my well-being and happiness. I sought advice from friends, colleagues, and even a therapist. The consensus was clear. I had every right to prioritize my own life and mental health. Taking on the role of Jack's caregiver would be a massive undertaking, one that I was neither prepared for nor obligated to accept. My friends reminded me of the importance of setting boundaries and not allowing my family to manipulate me into a situation that would cause me immense stress and unhappiness. My therapist helped me work through the guilt and reaffirmed that it was okay to say no. Despite the support, the guilt still gnawed at me. I found myself questioning my decision constantly. Was I being selfish? Was I really abandoning my family? But every time I thought about quitting my job, leaving my home, and putting my life on hold to care for Jack, the anxiety and resentment surged. I knew deep down that I could not sacrifice my well-being for a family that had never shown me the same consideration. In a desperate attempt to find a compromise, I suggested that my parents hire a professional caregiver and offered to contribute financially to cover the costs. I even researched and presented them with several reputable options. But they refused, insisting that only a family member could provide the care and support Jack needed. Their stubbornness left me feeling even more trapped and frustrated. The situation came to a head during a heated argument with my parents. They accused me of being heartless and ungrateful, saying that after everything they had done for me, this was how I repaid them. Couldn't believe what I was hearing. I reminded them of the years of neglect and favoritism, the countless times I had been hurt and overlooked. I told them that while I sympathized with Jack's condition, I could not be the one to take on such a monumental responsibility. In a fit of anger, my father declared that I was no longer welcome in their home and that I would be cut out of the will. My mother, though less vocally aggressive, made it clear that she agreed with his decision. The conversation ended with me feeling more alienated and heartbroken than ever before. Now, I'm left grappling with the aftermath. My parents have cut off all communication with me, and I'm not sure if they truly intend to disinherit me or if it's just another manipulation tactic. My relationship with my partner has been strained, though he's been incredibly supportive and understanding throughout this ordeal. I've had to take a leave of absence from work to focus on my mental health and try to find some semblance of peace. I find myself questioning everything. Am I the asshole for not wanting to give up my life and career to take care of the brother who made my childhood a living hell? Is it wrong for me to set boundaries and prioritize my own happiness and well-being? Or am I truly abandoning my family in their time of need? I know that this decision will have long-lasting repercussions, and I'm trying to come to terms with the possibility of losing my family entirely. But at the end of the day, I have to remind myself that I deserve to live my life on my own terms, free from manipulation and guilt. It's a painful and difficult journey, but I hope that by sharing my story, I can find some clarity and maybe even help others who are facing similar struggles. Am I the asshole for standing my ground and refusing to become my brother's full-time caregiver?